April 2023 when I start recording this video, and I intend to record the third part of my series of videos about home economics, how to make home economics great again. And I will start by the formal presentation of the documents that I intend to share, and then I will briefly summarize the first two parts by promoting books, and then I will start talking about the third part, and I am improvising what I intend to say. I mean, I have the structure and I know which kind of books I want to share, but I have no plan to talk about anything. I have written a few jokes. I will start with a good joke, and then I will present the document. A good ecological joke. So here's the joke. I'm not a comedian, I do not write jokes, but sometimes I have jokes which pop up in my mind. And that's a tip to seduce women, English-speaking women. You go see the woman and you say to her, excuse me, lady, you've probably heard about this climate change thing, you know. And when I look at you, I can't help but notice you're very hot, you know. And I suspect you might be responsible partly for global warming, because you're so hot that. Okay, that's not really funny, but well, yeah. I thought about this sometimes when it's not to be taken seriously. Yeah. I try to reconcile ecology, masculinity, comedy, and the sharing of knowledge and intelligence. That was the joke. I have other jokes for later, but yeah. So, the documents. I will not comment again, but basically the reason behind my home economics great again is that in order to secure and enhance and promote a free society, in the US, but actually in any country which seeks to be free, morality and ethics is a necessary component, and it begins by being able to order one's own life and one's own household. And yeah, so I share pieces of advice that I have stumbled upon, when I say by drawing inspiration from a lot of books and a lot of videos and a lot of people, but that I have almost consistently and almost constantly implemented, and which have helped me improve and grow intellectually, psychologically, individually, and yeah. So now I share the documents. UPS, I will use this throughout the video. Every singular human, but actually every singular object is a singular, precisely with particular characteristics and a universal determination. Genus, species, individual in biology, these are actually logical determination. I am a singular individual. I have determinations, properties, characteristics, features which are only which are unique to me as a singular, and it's true of you, whoever you are, but within the singular there are particular characteristics, properties, determinations, features, etc., tendencies, patterns of behavior, which are common to the entire class of particular. They are less numerous than the unique features which characterize the singular, but they are nonetheless present within. For instance, gender, ethnicity, age or generation, nationality, native language, culture, intelligence, religion, economic status, economic class, social class, economic status, etc., etc. These are particular characteristics. And then the universal, they are even more abstract, they are less numerous within the singular and within the particular, but they are more extended. So what is more abstract applies to a broader range of particulars and singulars. So I talk about my singular case, but I try to extract the particular and the universal. So I will use this document from the video. There are a few pop culture songs which talk about home economics in a poetic, romantic way, in a way. That's modern romanticism. So this document, I do not comment thoroughly because I have done this many times, and it is just a presentation of the structure of the development of ID. You can call this mind or spirit in a way, predominantly in the modern Western world, in the United States of America. This is where ideas develop, where the best ideas are being developed, but they are being shared through books, the sharing of information through the internet, in the entire Western world, and this is how ideas travel, and it is logically structured from the anthropological, sociobiological determinations at the top, then in the realm of psychology, language, intelligence, the realm of morality and ethics, rights or law and legislation, politics, economics, sociology, technology and communication, and geopolitics and religion. It's not rigorous, it's not formally accurate, but this is how I envision the world. Namely, this is not fixed and stable, it's precisely a movement, and the fundamental feature of our day and age, the 21st century, is the shift towards the right, the zeitgeist, in the Western world predominantly, and by acquiring knowledge and sharing knowledge through the internet mostly, people become aware of their identity and that which differentiates them from the other in a way, and this is how consciousness grows. It's a source of tension, and the balance in a way is to be found neither on one side nor on the other, but in the middle, to try to have both aspects, to take them both into account without while avoiding the excesses either of one side or the other. But in the modern West, the left side in a way has become a little bit excessive, and that's why there is a shift towards the right to restore some balance. This is what happens daily, what has happened for years and decades at a rather slow pace, but it happens daily, yeah. And yeah. So, I will switch to the other documents. And the reason why I take the time to make long and boring introduction is to promote, at least in some of my videos, a new way of communicating, namely trying to share a full worldview in my rather structured video in order to share the entirety of a whole view. And here is my document about home economics that I intend to comment. So in the first part I talked about the first layer: psychology, sleep, hygiene, food and diet, health, bathroom and toilets, exercise. So that's one way of ordering one's own soul and also one's own immediate environment. Then clean your room. I talked about this more thoroughly in the second part of the video series, one might say. Furniture and minimalism, the kitchen and crockery, clothes and laundry, the garden, and prepping. And in this video I will talk about the third level, personal life, family, women and sex, vices and addictions, how to run a budget, shopping and friends, and appearances and waste. They are kind of a transition between the kitchen, the garden, and shopping and appearances. It's kind of connected with friends, women, and clothes. It's a little bit sometimes superficial, yeah, but yeah, I will broadly talk about this while promoting books. Then the fourth level, it's not rigorous, it's just a guide to help visualize a systematic view of daily life, one might say, in its most trivial aspect in a way, but it can help, it has helped me a lot. Growth, individual, psychological, personal growth, self-development in a way. It's the totality. Here I simplify the philosophy of the boring German metaphysician. To grow means to incorporate all the levels. This is what enables growth. At each stage, all the previous ones are contained. Ideally, they are aufgehoben, preserved and negated in a way. So at the fourth level, if we want to quantify, there is housing and education, entertainment and transportation, and the purpose of taking care of one's own psyche and household, to clean your room, to put order in your room. The purpose eventually is to become an autonomous, self-reliant to the greatest extent possible, not necessarily materially, because it's very difficult in a modern complex society, but at least autonomous and independent as much as possible in order to become free, a free agent, and to be able to exteriorize one's own growth and intelligence and faculties in wider society in a way through work, to become a productive member of society, but not just economically, but to become a moral, ethical member of society. And here at the highest level we have the development of the social skills, the bureaucracy, civic life and information, and to become a citizen in the most noble sense, someone who can participate actively, intelligently and ethically into the life of the community. There has to be order at most level, and the greatest amount of order possible, and self-discipline and autonomy, and an individual who can order most of the aspects of his personal life, he becomes fit for liberty, in a sense of discipline, self-disciplined social interactions. Yeah, this is what makes a healthy social life possible. If most members of society are healthy individually, and it requires health at all levels. Yeah, this is a work, a constant work, a struggle, one might say. But yeah, that's how I envision this. And in this video, I intend to talk about the third level, personal life. I talked about the first and the second in the previous videos. Maybe I will do 5 videos, but in this video I will talk about the aspect personal life. Yeah. Okay, now I show briefly the other documents. So here it's a full view of the categories which structure the physical world, namely nature. It's a work in progress as well. It can be reorganized, reordered, but the idea is from the most abstract to be what is called mechanics in classical physics to a more modern view of physics, that would be quantitative physics on the left, qualitative physics, which includes chemistry, and here that would be really organic, the organic sciences, which is often called the life sciences or the earth sciences or the biology in the broadest sense. Yeah, but the biology and geology in a way, to consider the earth as a living totality. It includes ecology, so that's really an ecological view, not in a political sense, but in a scientific sense, of nature. Actually, that's an organic and full view of the fundamental categories which structure what is called nature, from the most abstract to the most concrete, developed, etc. It has to be adapted, improved, but I just give the formal contribution. Yeah. And finally, my view of what a human society is. Yeah. It begins, one might say, it's not chronological, but it's logical, it's encyclopedic, with the people in its biological, one might say, determinations, the anthropology, the ethnography, the sociobiology of the people, the demography, and it structures itself for individuation of the individuals. Here that's humans considered as part of a biological group, bio-psychological humans. Here that's the step towards the individuation from a psychological standpoint. It's more independent from the purely sociobiological or evolutionary tendencies of the psyche. That's an individuation process, a growth towards communication and recognition of others, the development of language, intelligence, practical tendencies, which gives rise to ethics. And here, home economics, that's the bedrock of the family life, which is the foundation of a healthy society. And we have culture, morality, economics, sociology, politics, the government, money and banking, the budget of the government, rights, law, order, the maintaining of order, the relationship of each state with other states, that's geopolitics, globalism. The byproduct of economics is technological development. Environmentalism, that's the relationship of the economic life of a society with its environment. And finally, art, religion and philosophy, these are the expressions, the manifestations, the reflections of the entirety of society. And in order, the utility of this document, the utility is really to think, in order to think seriously about any social event, all the aspects have to be taken into account. Those who talk about economics without talking about IQ, they miss fundamental determination. Those who talk about sociology without talking about demographics, they miss a point. Those who talk about politics without taking into account ethics or morality, they miss the point, etc., etc. That's just a total way of thinking, which is the basic requirement of seriousness in the intellectual sphere. That's an encyclopedic way of thinking. Yeah. And the reason, I've already said this, but I repeat, the reason which has unconsciously and unconsciously driven me towards making videos about home economics and practicing what I would call ethics is precisely the idea that since a human society is a whole, and the whole consists in all of its parts, the whole can be healthy only if all the parts or most of the parts are healthy, and the parts, the social selves, the family is to society what the cell is to the organism. All the cells have to be, or most of the cells, they have to be healthy, and it begins by individual behavior and ordering one's own household. Clean your room, as Mr. Peterson would say, is very important, because a well-ordered room or household is the reflection of a well-ordered psyche, and this enables a well-ordered economy, a well-ordered political life, order, discipline, without excesses, of course, but at all levels, and this is what enables a healthy collective life. It begins with the individual acting. That's my view. Ron Paul is very intelligent because he talks mostly about economics, about finance and economics, but he's very intelligent because he's not an economist. Precisely, he understands the connection between money, economics, banking, etc., and family life, morality, law, partly religion. He doesn't talk much about religion, but he understands the connection between culture, morality, family values, and the health of the economic, monetary, and political life of a country. So, yeah. Okay, it's been 23 minutes. And now I will establish this document. Okay. I will just go take not a glass of water, but seek a book that I've been reading, and I'm still reading with care and attention, by Per Bylund, How to Read a Book. It is really intelligent, excellent book, which shed a lot of light on modern economic problems. Yeah, so now, okay. Okay, the book recommendations are the first two layers. I will do this at the end of the video because it takes quite a lot of time. Yeah, so now I will focus on the ethical aspect. Yeah. Also, Yeah. Yeah. My slogan, it's not a slogan, but my motto, one might say, to simplify what I talk about when I talk about home economics, that could be deregulate the economy. That's Austrian view, not the Austrians of Austria, but the Austrian school of economics. Deregulate the economy, and the counterpart is regulate your behavior. Freedom of the market, discipline of the soul and the mind and the will. The discipline of the individuals, freedom of the market. Yeah, which is actually a return to 19th century capitalism, but with an ecological consciousness and with the spread of information and the level of literacy. I'm not talking about intelligence, but literacy at least. It enables to reclaim the virtues of the past while avoiding the excesses, in a way, in order to limit and restrict the excesses of modernity, which are not capitalist excesses, but socialist in a way, and there are very intelligent analysis and explanations about the distortion of markets by artificially lowered interest rates. It helps understand a lot about economic problems. Yeah. That's my populist self. I'm with the people. That's a joke. Yeah, but okay. So now a little bit of virtue signaling. This is what I have been practicing for many months or sometimes many years. And if people give up on some or most or all of these vices, when I say, or addictions, it will be good psychologically, economically, because it will reduce the GDP in a way, but it will be good for individual savings, one might say, and it's good for the planet because it brings about less pollution. Yeah, so my purpose, in case it's not clear, is to slow down, to significantly reduce economic activity, because there is an enormous amount of goods and services which are being produced, which are actually either detrimental or useless or yeah. And here I just received two books just earlier this afternoon. These are books written in French, but they are probably the same kind of books. But I know there is because I've ordered one in English. But here's a book, The State Addicted to Tobacco. Smoke, the state cashes in. So that's a denunciation of the enrichment, the way that the state, that's the French state, that's the singular case, but every state makes money by taxing the vices and the addictions of the people. So in a way, the state has an interest in the people being vicious, because vicious here in the sense addicted, basically, because on all of these, most of these addictions or temptations, there are taxes, and it enables to strengthen political authoritarianism in a way through taxation, and it brings about dependency, etc., etc. And here another book, I'm sure that many other can be found like these. My child is not a marketing target in a way. So that's a book about television which denounces the negative detrimental effect on television on children, how it is used to manipulate children. So of course I advise not to watch TV if you are an adult, but even less so if you have children. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, so now I will talk briefly and then I will show my other documents. Yeah. Okay, so personal life, in a way, that's the growth of the soul leads towards individuation or individualization. Basically, the psyche, it's kind of, in a way, it's kind of tied strongly with the natural tendencies, not necessarily for the bad aspect, but it's kind of really rough and kind of vague and kind of rough, in a sense of a rough diamond. It's kind of vague and not very structured, and growing means for the soul, it means to acquire a personality. And it requires, I mean, of course, there are people who are spontaneously talented, virtuous, good-hearted, disciplined, etc. But to grow up means to work on oneself through discipline, self-discipline, self-imposed constraints and discipline to acquire a personality, which means an individuation of the soul, and it enables to have relationship with others and relationship also with the self. And here I will talk about personal life. It includes the relationship with the members of one's own native family, one might say. Every human inherits parents and grandparents, whether they can talk to them or not, because sometimes they are deceased before the person is even born, but every person is the child of parents and grandparents and an entire genealogy, and it includes the ancestors, the bloodline in a broader sense, and eventually the tribe and the ethnicity and the race. And every person, I mean not every, but some person, they have siblings. So here the family means the natural family, which is inherited in a way, and women and sex, that would be, that's from a male perspective, obviously. It's the purpose in a traditional society of finding a woman is to found one's own family. So here that's family, that's the inherited family, but actually the purpose of finding a woman and having sex is to bring about children. So the acquired family, in a way, that would be here, in a way. So if here you are the child, here the result of the process is to have your own children, in a way. Appearances, it's kind of connected with clothes. That's the way of dressing, not necessarily with clothes, but the overall looks, to engage into interpersonal relationship with the outer world, in a way. There is an ecological, cultural, social, sociological aspect. Friends, that's how to interact with others who are like-minded, with whom you share the same interests, and that you wish to achieve great things together, or draw inspiration from, etc., etc. Vices and addictions, that's what I've shown earlier. And here, the budget, it's partly personal business, but that's a transition towards, actually it's already the case, with society, in a way. If you are well-ordered, well-disciplined, you have to be able to run a budget and to manage your expenses, your income, your expenses, and not get into debt, etc., etc. And it's connected with shopping. Here it's predominantly the problem of the modern Western world, which has an excess of consumerism and materialism, not in the philosophical sense, but in really the common usage, common meaning of the word, namely an excess of acquisitiveness towards material goods. And here waste is kind of a transition, because It can be an excess of buying useless stuff, but it also, if it's well ordered, it's connected with the kitchen and the garden, and it enables to recycle. So that's ecologically minded. And the same goes with appearances, which is partly tied with clothes and laundry, etc., etc. Yeah, so I do not have, I'm not a role model in many regards, but I am not an expert in any of all these determination, because I've started to learn how to live a more independent, autonomous life only for, one might say, no, it's been almost 14 months. So that's a learning process, a learning curve. I still have to improve a lot, but at least these are the categories. So I will show the table boards with all the aspects, so that will be a summary in a way of the things that I have implemented, that I continue to implement or try to implement consistently and constantly, and then I will recommend books. Yeah. But because of my religious inclinations, a little bit of Greek mythology. So here I think that it's Hestia, the Greek goddess of the household, or maybe that's, yeah, I think that's the Greek goddess, that's Hestia, and the Roman equivalent, that's Hera, I think. Yeah. So the goddesses, the gods and goddesses of the pantheon, whether Greek, Roman, or Nordic, or even Slavic, but the most well-known are the Greeks, the Romans, and partly the Nordic ones. But the Greeks and the Romans, they are those who have been preserved through literary text, illustrations, artistic expression, like statues, etc. the most. So they are the most well-known, at least in terms of widespread culture. They represent faculties or determinations of the soul, or the mind, or the spirit. So, for instance, that's the representation of the goddess of the household in ancient Greece. Here, that's Aphrodite, the Greek equivalent of Venus. She is dressed. I have the version where she's undressed. That's not that's art. That's not yeah, that's art. Yeah, so the Greek goddess of youth and beauty and desire, in a way. And here, Amour and Psyche, that's the reproduction of a sculpture from, I think, the 18th century, from an Italian sculptor. Yeah, this is classical Greek and classical European art, in a way. So yeah. And Demeter is the goddess of the crops. Artemis is the goddess of the chastity and the moon, etc., etc. So yeah, they were not stupid, these Greeks and these Romans and these Nordic pagan or Viking. Yeah. So now I will show the documents. Yeah, so I have showed this document already. Now I will not comment rigorously, because I've done this yesterday and the day before. When you watch this, maybe it will have been, you will maybe not have watched the previous videos, or only after a certain amount of time, so I don't know, but I do not comment rigorously, but in the realm of psychology, here are some things that I've been practicing. I practice daily introspection. I watch Psyche to Go every day, or videos with testimonies from person who suffers, for instance, from autism or sometimes schizophrenia, or lectures by scholars on psychology can help. Making an IQ test has been very helpful for me. Yeah. And here are some great therapists. Yeah. Here, a sleeping routine, which has been very useful. I write down every morning the schedule of my sleeping patterns so that I can keep track. And sleeping is really helpful. In the realm of hygiene, so here was psychology, sleep, now it's hygiene. I've taken a cold shower just before recording this video. It stimulates and vitalizes. It's cold, but it's very pleasant. Yeah. Yeah. Almost, if not all, the tips that I share, I have been practicing them, because the purpose is not just to tell how people, how they should or how they could run their life. My view of ethics is that you have to try to implement what you have to try to practice what you preach, and I have consistently and constantly practiced almost, if not all, the pieces of advice that I share. Otherwise that would be worthless. But I really practice the overwhelming majority of what I preach. Sometimes I can't, because to keep track of everything it's too demanding, and sometimes I just have a day where I just want to let go a little bit and I forget some aspects, etc. And I cannot give the same degree of attention to every aspect, but I have implemented a lifestyle that I do not intend to change. Of course, you have to adapt to the circumstances, etc. But this is, in a way, an ethics which can be implemented not only for the rest of your life, whoever you are, not in all the details, but in the fundamental tendency, but it's universal. The aim, it's not, of course it's not perfect, but the aim is to provide a universal ethics for in space and in time. There's the long-term aspect, in a way, the ecological aspect. Yeah. And the question that I have asked myself, not the question, the view that I have held is, the purpose is to act regardless of the long-term consequences, namely whether you have to live for 1 day, 1 week, 1 year, 10 years, 1,000 years, or 1 million years. If it's really good, if the pieces of us are really good, if the universal which is being extracted is really good, it ought to be true at all times, in all places. Yeah. But at all times and all places, it doesn't mean that it has to be singularized, because it cannot be reproduced if the context changes, but the particulars of the universal, if they are good, they ought to be valid at all times, in all places. Yeah. Yeah. So here I briefly show the document. So here, for instance, I have showed bits of advice for psychology, sleep, hygiene, bathroom and toilets, food and diet, health, exercise. Now clean your room, furniture and minimalism, etc., etc. And we do this for most categories. So, yeah, I've already talked about this. It's a little bit boring, but I still have some good jokes later, but it might be a little bit boring, but here, in case it's not clear, we live in an age, at least in the Western world, where everything is supposed to be funny and comical, even when it's not funny at all. So I can make jokes when I'm in a good mood, when I'm kind of inspired in a way. I can make good jokes, but the purpose is not to the idea that videos or content has to be entertaining. It's already a bias and a negative prejudice. Sometimes, if how should I explain this? Entertainment is not necessarily detrimental to enlightenment, but if content has to be just entertaining and it's devoid of intellectual content, then it can be helpful sometimes, but it can become problematic. But if sometimes, here that's just a philosophical view, sometimes the content has to be a little bit boring, and there has to be investment on the part of the follower in a way, or the person who is interested. He has to go for a little bit of boredom sometimes just to acquire knowledge, ethical knowledge or intellectual knowledge. So I produce sometimes, maybe most of the time, I don't know, boring content, but the purpose is not to provide constant entertainment, because the belief that the purpose of life is to be constantly entertained and everything has to be fast and immediately pleasant and accessible without any sort of effort. This is precisely the kind of mentality which has led to the moral decline and the cultural decadence of the Western world over the past many decades. Here are the names of some American preppers, and Mr. Piero San Giorgio lives in Switzerland, but he has imported American ideals and ideas about prepping in Western Europe. Yeah. Comment briefly. My view of libertarianism, I've already said this, but I will repeat this as long as I have to. I try, it's not, sometimes I do this spontaneously, but I do not seek to adopt how should I explain this? So here are new pieces of advice about family life. Make the patriarchy great again, homeschool your kids, encourage communication with relatives. About friends, well, I don't have any friends, so I read Nietzsche when I really feel down. Yeah. About women and sex, seek only a high quality woman, which requires that you yourself become a high quality man, and seek only not long-term relationship, but only a long-term relationship, because if it's long-term, there cannot be many by very definition. I will detail this later, but be indifferent to women's political views. When women talk about politics or economics or all the topics of objective spirits, objective guys, be indifferent, because the reason, it's not misogyny, it's simply that women can only repeat what the figure of authority says. So women have no independent ideas in the realm of politics. They just repeat whatever is trendy, whatever, they just adopt the views of the person of authority. Traditional society knew this. This is why women have been prevented from participating in political life directly, why they were restricted to community organizing and household management, because they can easily be influenced. The fear of the conservatives or the reactionaries in the 19th century was that the women, if they were allowed to participate in political life, would be under the influence of the church. Here, that was the case in France, because they are easily influenced, but actually they have been proven right in the entire Western world, because whenever women have been allowed to vote, they just follow whatever the figure of authority says, namely the news media, the academia, the scholars, the politicians. They are easily influenced, and they very rarely, if not at all, go against the crowd, so they are just followers. So if you try to debate a woman about politics, that's a waste of time, because she has no ideas of her own. She will just repeat, unconsciously, but actually she will just repeat whatever the figure of authority that she considers to be, to have authority. She will just repeat whatever the masculine figure of authority said, but in a less coherent, less authentic way. So yeah. List and watch good videos about women's behavior to understand how they function. Don't chase women. Improve yourself and let them chase you. No hookup culture, no casual sex. The consequence of following these pieces of advice will be no divorce expenses, no STDs, and also no need to hire a cleaning lady. If you find a wife, you don't need to hire a cleaning lady, because the purpose of a wife is to take care of the household, of course. That's why here a little bit of serious comedy. That's why we'll talk about this later as well, probably, but my videos about home economics, basically I provide the work that women were supposed to perform and are still expected to perform in traditional society, namely all societies except Western, modern Western or Western influenced societies. I have been practicing what women are supposed to do in a traditional society. Not only I do this every day, and I do this well, while working about providing a theoretical perspective on home economics. Not only I practice, but I provide the metaphysical, maybe that's a little bit excessive to say, but the theoretical structure. So I perform the actions that women are supposed to perform, but I think about what I do in a systematic way. And the rest of the day, I practice civic virtue. I provide a systematic view of the totality. It's not perfect, of course, but that's a work in progress of nature. I've made lectures about logic. I provide a systematic view of subjective and objective Geist. Yeah, so I don't want to brag, but I can be a very competent cleaning lady. But I'm not just that. That's not derogatory for women, but simply, that's what I think. If you want to seduce a woman, first you have to say, excuse me, dear woman, but whatever you think you can do, whatever value you think you can bring in terms of household management, I can do it better than you, and I can do even more, and I can do what you do yourself. I do it better, and I can do other things that you can't do. So you have to to assert yourself and to say, excuse me, but I'm the boss, and you are here. Don't say you are here to serve me, because with the modern brainwashing, she might think, oh, that's a toxic masculinity. No, you have to say you are here to serve the greatest interest of our couple, to bring harmony, etc., etc. But the serious aspect is that in order to restore healthy relationship between men and women in the Western world, you have to make clear to your girlfriend or your wife, whatever you think you can do in the realm of household management, I can do it, or I could do it as well as you, and even better. But as a man, I provide services to the household, to the family, even if it's just a couple, that you can't provide. You don't say this to downgrade her, but to make her aware that you're the man and you can bring value, and you do not need a wife. You take a wife as a partner to assist you, to help you, and she will help you in your endeavor if you collaborate intelligently, etc. And you have to respect her, but a woman has to know her place. Yeah. Stella taught me this, and I know, because I read a lot of books, in the not the preface, but how do you call this? The acknowledgements in most great books, they are dedicated. Most great books are written by males, and they are dedicated to their wife. And behind most great men, there is a great woman, of course. Ron Paul has a wonderful wife, I imagine. But and it's true of many great, because probably the case of Mr. Bylund, I don't know, because I read so many books, but a lot of time at the beginning of the books, the author dedicates the book to his wife, who has been supportive all over the years, helped me in my work. She reread the paper, she has assisted me, giving love and comfort and support, etc., etc., etc. So, yeah, Ron Paul, let's take the example. Ron Paul is not a great man because he has a great wife. He has a great wife because he's a great man. And his wife, like it's true of the wife of every great man, they would agree. The wives, here I know how women function, they don't want to be great. They want to be with great men, basically. And if you become a great man, your wife or your girlfriend or your female partner will appreciate you for being great, and she will appreciate herself for being the female companion of a great man. Yeah. 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 Here I make a remark. My views of women, I owe them to Julius Evola, which is heavily influenced by Otto Weiniger, who was a Jewish metaphysician, influenced by German metaphysics. So Julius Evola, Otto Weiniger, Stella, and, well, modern sociobiology in a way. Of course, all the great women that I have encountered in my life, I've encountered a lot of great women. Yeah. That's true. Yeah, but I have really traditionalist views, but no, that's not the order and chaos, they have to be balanced. I know that rigorous traditionalism, it cannot be brought back rigorously, it has to be balanced by modernity and a certain tolerance for relative women's, I wouldn't say autonomy, but women's fulfillment, let's say. But my views are traditionalist nonetheless. Yeah. Okay, so, and here, a little bit of demagogy. Where is my demagogy t-shirt? Yeah. Again, I will make a little bit of a, not a misogynistic, but a masculinist joke. The losers, they have women's clothes without the woman, and the winners, they have the opposite. That's a joke. Maybe it's kind of true, but yeah. As of now, I just need the shirt to communicate. Yeah, about budget management. What I've been doing, I do not. This is the kind of thing that I have practiced constantly, or I have practiced this consistently, but not constantly, in a sense that I do not literally list all my expenses. I have almost no income, but I do not list all my expenses because it's really tiring. That's the job of an accountant, but I do this frequently just to check inflation, to keep track of inflation, to manage my budget. But this is an example of something that I recommend to do, but I myself do not practice this rigorously, exhaustively, but I do this nonetheless. I often list my regular expenses to keep track of my budget. Yeah. Save money, reduce your debt, or do not get into debt. Invest in gold, silver, or cryptocurrency. When going shopping, when you go shopping, try to buy local, to buy wholesale as much as possible. Buying local can mean buying local when you travel geographically, maybe to travel by foot or by bike, or closer, if you use a car, closer to where you live to reduce pollution, transportation, etc. Or buying local, it can mean buying products which have been produced locally. Here it's in a broader sense, in the geographical area, in the more extended perspective, namely. If you are in America, if you buy Canadian products, in a way that's local. If you are in Western Europe, if you buy products from Italy or Spain, in a way that's local, more local than if the products come from China or South America, etc. I'm not a protectionist, but my view is to regulate, to deregulate the economy, so to advocate free market, because it's really the best producer of wealth. But on an individual level, it doesn't mean that you have to buy cheap stuff coming from the other half of the planet, wherever you live. If you choose to encourage local businesses and local products in a broader sense, it's good, and that's what I do. But of course, because of the International Division of Labor, it's not possible to buy things which are produced in a small geographical area. I have consistently encouraged small businesses, shopkeepers, independent workers, craftsmen, and local charities. I encourage small businesses because it encourages decentralization, and usually business owners, they are more pro-free market, and they are in favor, even though they might have no political culture, they are more in favor of decentralization and independence, because they earn an income depending on what they produce. They are not paid by redistributive taxation. They are not civil servants, and they make profits and losses depending on their own personal activity. They do not rely on the state stealing money from the people to give them an income. Yeah. Financial independence is correlated and reinforces political independence. They reciprocally determine and strengthen one another. This is why the socialists, it has taken me a long time to understand it, that's why the socialists advocate welfare help, the welfare state, not because they care about the poor, but because if you become dependent, if you lose your financial independence, so that's why they promote giving free stuff to the poor, because if you become financially dependent, you become politically and eventually psychologically dependent. That's why what seems positive, namely giving free stuff to poor people, free housing, reduction in cost of food, free education, free healthcare, free jobs, etc., whatever, it sounds good, but actually it's very negative because it creates dependence. This is what the Americans call the democratic slave plantation. The Democratic Party in the US just buys modern slaves, basically, but it's true for every leftist political party in the West, which is a degeneration and a corruption of the ideal of the classical left, who wanted the workers to be independent and self-organizing and not to become parasites. Here it's kind of derogatory, but actually parasite means someone who eats while being dependent on another. That's the etymology of the Greek word. A parasite is someone who cannot sustain himself, and here it will be derogatory, but actually it's just someone who is dependent on the state. And there are many people who have become dependent on the state because it's a means to acquire political loyalty and subservience in a way. That's feudalism, democratic feudalism in a way. Yeah. And here I give an anecdote about French political life, because it's more intense in the case of France, which is really more socialist than probably most Western countries. The French politicians, which means the French demagogues, most of them are on the left, but when they say we have to tax the rich to give to the poor, but they do not say this because it sounds like Robin Hood, but actually they say we have to tax the rich. What they mean, if you decipher what they actually mean, for them the rich, here it's maybe specific to France, but it can be universalized to a certain extent. These are people who basically, I caricature a little bit, but I think the median income is broadly 1,800 euros broadly. Let us simplify. Let us say 2,000 euros. It's not true, but let's simplify. That's the median income broadly. For them, someone who is rich is someone who earns more than the median income. So in the mind of the leftist political demagogues, if, let us imagine, I simplify, if you are an independent entrepreneur, if you make $2,100 or euros a month, you are considered to be rich. But if you are a civil servant, a high-serving civil servant like a politician or a bureaucrat, and you make 3,000 euros per month, you are considered to be not among the poor, but among the oppressed, because the mentality is really, if you are an independent worker, a capitalist, as they call it, you are an oppressor, and if you earn your money from the state, you are an oppressed. Actually, that's the opposite. Not always, but for them, it means that for them, the rich, it actually means the financially independent, whatever the level of wealth is, and the oppressed, in their mind, it often means those who are dependent on the state, because the logic is, if you are oppressed, you are protected by the state, or you ought to be protected by the state. That's the view of the left. But then the consequence, when it's not, when they become completely irrational, it means if you are protected by the state, you are oppressed. So they can mask as being, although they are highly paid political demagogues, then they can say, we are a representative of the state or the republic or the interest of the country, etc. And to masquerade as victims of the oppression of the rich and the capitalists, whereas actually they are the oppressors because they make money by stealing from the people, by being demagogues and promising free stuff. And here only the Americans unable to understand this trick, because they are the only sane, mentally and economically healthy. I mean, the classical Americans, those who have preserved the American tradition, they are the only one who help and enable to see clearly through the manipulation of all leftist politicians. And yeah. Because to understand that giving free stuff to people is not liberating, but it's a means of oppression, it requires maturity and a certain level of intelligence, and it takes a lot of time to understand that by giving free stuff to people through state redistribution, that's a means of oppressing them, because you make them dependent and subservient, and you buy their votes eventually. And yeah. I mean, it's common sense, but actually, when you are a little bit naive, it takes a lot of time to figure out the deception. And yeah. Yeah. So now the next document is about housing. So that would be the fourth layer. So I will stop there. Now I will just promote books. So I will not thoroughly talk about every topic, but I will just promote books, and I will just give a few personal comments. That's UPS. I have tried to encourage communication. I have tried to reduce vices and addictions. I have started trying to run a budget, or I have applied in the terms of shopping most of my ecological libertarian views. But here my personal problem is that I am autistic, so I have an inherent problem in having relationships with others, because it's really exhausting. Maybe I use this as an excuse, but I try to make efforts. But I've here, that's the utility of studying your own psyche. Studying psychology. Studying psychology by watching videos from autistic people. When you are autistic, having ordinary conversations with people, what is called in English small talk, it's really exhausting, because if you are really Asperger, usually the males especially, they are really interested in complex, abstract, interesting ideas, and when you have to lower down and to come back down in a way to earth, to have small talk with ordinary people, in a way for me it has been very beneficial over the past few months, and I still draw a lot of psychological healing from having sometimes just ordinary conversation with ordinary people, because it enables me to have their perspective, and just to have small talk, it can do me a lot of good. So I have to be grateful to the muggles for enabling me. That's not derogatory. I'm on the side of Ron Weasley's father most of the time. Yeah, so talking with ordinary people, with empirical people, it has helped me bring a lot of psychological balance, but nonetheless, I still remain autistic, and this is something that I try to work on to adapt to others. This has been really an exhausting struggle among all my struggles, trying to fit with other people, not to please them, but simply to show more empathy towards the neurotypical people. It's really exhausting, and here that's not my singular prime, but it's a prime particular to autistic people. So quantitatively, that's not very frequent. It's really a tiny portion of the population, but I am like really autistic Asperger people. Talking to others, it's really exhausting, because they perceive the neurotypical people, they perceive the world really differently, and I have to downgrade. I do not show disdain by saying this. It's simply that from a perspective of a highly intelligent person who has problems of interpersonal communication due to, sometimes it's a lack of effort on my part, and I'm willing to confess this, and I'm trying to improve, but sometimes it's just difference. It's part of what makes life wealthy in the good sense, but sometimes just it's really exhausting to have small talk. And yeah, so that there is I've tried to do effort, I have done efforts, and I will keep trying to do so. But when you are Asperger and very intelligent and very educated in a way, not formally but with a high culture, there are very few people that you can talk to about that which you are really interested in, because if you start talking about what interests you, you take the role unconsciously of the teacher, because you are more knowledgeable than the others, most of them, so you have the role of the teacher, which is kind of problematic, because that's not what I want to do in my ordinary talk. So either you have to fake humility. Here, Autism from the Inside, the channel, he talks about this very well. He says in one of his videos, I'm not arrogant, I am autistic. My personal case, I can be sometimes arrogant because of maybe lack of maturity, or because lack of wisdom, etc. But sometimes I can appear arrogant, but although it's not the case, it's not intentional, and it's not even the case, it's simply because of my autism. So when you understand this, yeah, it has helped me a lot to understand that even sometimes when I really sound arrogant, sometimes it's because I can have excesses, but a lot of time it's simply not the case. It's just because I'm autistic, and autistic people, they can appear as being arrogant because they are some sort of intellectual know-it-alls, etc. But here it's really a divergence of neural connections, and it teaches me humility in a good sense, because sometimes you are really different, and no matter how hard you try to adapt to others, not to please them, but simply to become social in a good sense, you can't really succeed, and it's not of any fault of your own. And yeah, maybe if I'm a little bit lazy, sometimes I might have the temptation to say to put the blame on autism, but if I'm honest, I'm aware that I have to make efforts, and I continue to do so, and I will continue to do so, but sometimes it's really it's really exhausting. Yeah, so I make efforts, but yeah, Okay, so let us make a good joke. So here I will promote my books about women. Okay, so here I will just promote books about women. I have classified them logically, I might say. It's encyclopedically arranged, one might say. It begins with really the biological aspect from a really scientific standpoint, the anthropology of males and females differences. I do not recommend necessarily this book, it's just to illustrate males, females and behavior. So the modern feminist ideology will vanish simply because it's scientifically nonsensical. And in the phenomenal appearance of mind, the document that I showed earlier, men, mostly throughout the Western world, predominantly the Anglo-Saxon sphere, but then the Western world at large, and eventually the whole world, they will become aware of all the determinations of women that are determined biologically to act the way they do. Sex and the evolution of human nature. Yeah. Eggs are expensive. Sperm is cheap. That's why women are more valuable to society for economic reason, but here economic not in terms of economics, but simply because they are the sex with the least reproductive cells, and therefore they are more valuable. The supply of reproductive cells from women is way more limited than the supply of reproductive cells from men, and therefore they are more valuable. That's why they have to be protected in a way, because here it's well known, but one woman and 99 men on a desert island, that will be probably difficult for the woman. The species would not survive, but one man and 99 women on a desert island, the species could reproduce in a way. I don't know what would happen, but probably that would not be boring, at least. Yeah. A book about female sexuality. A revolutionary book by an intelligent female Jewish scholar. This book is very important because I haven't read the whole book, but what it says is that women in the Western world, they experience sexual frustration because they have been told for decades by the Marxist ideology that that sex basically, or gender, is a social construct. Therefore they have been led to negate or to ignore the biological roots of their behaviors and especially in the realm of sex, which has brought a lot of misunderstanding and frustration. And this book, it's kind of dangerous in a way, because it promotes science, socio-biological science, for the sake of enhancing the female sexual experience, and it sounds like it's just indifferent. Actually, it's kind of dangerous. I mean, in a good way, because if women, if they start requiring or demanding the restoration of science, whatever their personal motives, if socio-biological science is reintroduced in the Western world, it's considered controversial, etc. But the people who advocate science in the Western world, these are mostly right-wing white people, but they are kind of outcasts. But if women start saying, hey, but if we start studying the sociobiological determinism of gender and sex, we will learn more about the potentialities for sexual enjoyment, that might be their personal, that would be the cunning of reason, that might be their personal, the personal trick which would lead them to demand the restoration of science and biology, etc. But then, if it happens, it will be able to restore sanity in the whole of society, because one of the main problems that Western societies suffer from is the political correctness, which by very nature is, if it's political correctness and not scientific correctness, it means a distortion of the sciences, and there is a lot of nonsensical policies which have been enacted and are still being enacted because of the ignorance, the willing ignorance of biology and the biological influence on human behavior. So yeah, this is a, if women can get interested in sociobiology, whatever their personal motives, that would be genuinely revolutionary. Yeah, another aspect of the internet age, this is just an example, the wicked thoughts of the whole of mankind are becoming available. A book against pornography, the case against the sexual revolution. Yeah, this is a typical example. Mrs. Louise Perry, she's very intelligent because she understands that this is connected with discussing politics with women. She adopts conservative or even reactionary views, but it's not, these are not her own ideas. She just is intelligent enough to understand that men in the West, masculine men, they are found on the right because they have to revolt against the current dissolution of society, so they have to toughen up a little bit. So strong men are emerging on the right side in a way, and women, they are interested in strong men, so they know that in order to please strong men, you have to advocate an ideology which fits them in a way. So that's why we have women advocating the return of virtue and sexual restraint. It's not because they are virtuous. I mean, they are empirically, but the psychology is not that they are interested in virtue. They are interested in pleasing virtuous men, and they are intelligent enough to know that the emergence of virtuous men happens predominantly on the right because there is a shift, a revolt against the modern decadence. So they anticipate that by appealing to the need for men to hear women talk about virtue, restraint, etc., etc., they will be more valuable in the eyes of men. I understand. Yeah. Homosexual and transgender seeking God. the transgender ideology is just Plato's symposium applied in modernity, basically. Feminism and Freedom by Michael Levine. That's a Jewish scholar. So we had the biological aspect. Here that's the biopolitical, in a way that's the transition towards politics. The Problem of Women's Liberation by Murray Rothbard. So these two books were written by Jews, and they denounce feminism. There are a lot of Jewish intellectuals who promote feminism. The Privileged Sex by Martin Van Crevel, another Jew who denounces feminism. So the Jews, they are not only on the side of feminism. There are a lot of them, but there are also those who denounce feminism for what it is, namely the deception. Designed to deceive women. Sexual Utopia in Power. Yeah. The Rational Male. So here, any person who is interested in understanding women can watch the video of Mr. Rollo Tomassi. And it is, again, it's revolutionary because there is knowledge being produced, and when men understand how women function, they will not let themselves be deceived any longer. So it will, if the dynamics between the genders is radically altered, the whole of society, it will have effects upon the whole of society. This is what happened in the 1960s with the sexual revolution, and the effects have been the complete dissolution of Western societies. But now there's another revolution through the spread of knowledge, a return towards a more rational view, and it will have effects as well, in the opposite direction in a way. But you cannot go back to the pre-1960s state of things, because that's Aufhebung. You have to go back to the past, to a traditionalist view, while incorporating the process of modernity, namely to restore order in the gender dynamics without basically, for the Western, without advocating Sharia law. Women have to be restrained, but without restraint, without constraint, in a way. So my view is simply that men have to become great again, and if men become great again, women will obey them. That's what they do. It's not, women do not have to be forced. Men have to become strong, and women will follow them. Yeah, that's how it functions. I know a lot about yeah. Why women cheat and how to prevent it in a nutshell. So basically what happens with the internet age, among many other exciting things and interesting things, is that men are starting to discover that women are deceivers, basically. Yeah. Yeah, so this was the socio-biological aspect in terms of behavior and gender dynamics, and here are more sociological books. The traditional sociology, a very intelligent American leftist scholar, Mr. Christopher Lasch. The Boy Crisis. The Death of the Grown-Up. Make Moms Great Again, by making moms housewives again. Fascinating Womanhood. Most of the great books about femininity, feminism, traditional gender roles, they have been written and are still being produced in the United States of America. This is the American women, from an empirical, historical perspective, these have been and still are in a way the best women, because they are the most feminine while incorporating an aspect of masculinity in their behavior, namely, here that's the UPS. This book is about applying Greek mythological archetypes to female psyche. So Greek is a particular type of mythology, femininity or womanhood is universal, and the author is half Japanese or Japanese person of American citizenship. So that's the unity of Japan, America, and ancient Greece. And it's a good book. And here that's really the metaphysical, which was already the case, the mythological, psycho-mythological, psycho-metaphysical, gnostic, esoteric view. And the reference in terms of the metaphysics of sex. Evola produced great books as well. Otto Weininger. Yeah. So what was I saying? Yeah. Artemis, Hestia, Aphrodite. Yeah. And Athena. Yeah. That's the Roman Minerva, the goddess of intelligence. Yeah. And yeah, about American women, they are the most feminine women. They have been historically until the 1950s, what I say, but also they are kind of masculine in a way, in the good sense, because they incorporate really masculine features like competence, confidence, assertion, not arrogant assertion of the modern feminist, but the assertion which comes with confidence in one's own ability, and the archetype of the American woman, really the household manager in a way, the entrepreneur of the household. When America was at its peak in the 1950s, when I say economically, women were at the peak of their household productivity in terms of overall competence. Of course, not all women, but yeah, when American men were at their best, American women were at their best as well. Yeah. So that's about books about women and sex. So now I will make a good joke. A joke, at least, a good joke, I don't know, but yeah. That's Poseidon, the Greek god of the ocean and the weather and partly the thunder and the storms and the tornadoes, etc., etc. Why is Poseidon such a womanizer? Because when he makes it rain, the women get wet. Well, that was the joke. Yeah. You're such a womanizer, dear Poseidon. Yeah. So, yeah, that was for the presentation about the third level of personal household management. There's still a lot of work to do, and yeah. So now I will just take a short break, and then I will recapitulate, summarize all the books that I promoted. Not all of them necessarily, but the books that I've promoted in the part 1 and part 2. And then I will end the video. Yeah. So I take a short pause. Oh, and another remark, which is well known, but romantic literature is to women what pornography is to men. But when women, when they boast about reading good books, if they do about the number of books that they've read, romantic stories, etc., that's the female equivalent of males watching porn, basically, because women, they are wired differently and they are turned on by different stimuli. Men, they are more in the visual aspect. That's why they watch porn, with the detrimental effects that it has on their brain, their sexual appeal and sexual energy, their masculinity, and then their moral virility, sometimes even physical, and their morality. Yeah. But so men, they need visual stimulation, and females, they are more in the emotional aspect. But romance is for women. I mean, it's well known for those who have gathered the knowledge. Romance, romantic novels or movies, is for women what pornography is for men, basically. Yeah. So women, they are not as virtuous as they pretend to be. But that's okay. If you know the trick, that's okay. But here I'm in a good mood. But when I say don't listen to what women say when they talk about politics, it's not that they are incompetent intellectually, but it's simply for sociobiological and metaphysical reason. Women only respect the figure of authority, or they only repeat what the figure of authority that they respect said. So they are completely dependent intellectually, which means that when you debate a woman, there are two problems. First, she's not genuine, she's just a tool of whoever controls her, not in a manipulative way, but she will just repeat whatever the trendy scholar or the famous journalist or politician or intellectual, etc. She will just repeat. And when a man debates a woman, the man, because he's programmed sociobiologically to care about the woman, he will not dare challenge her too much, so he will kind of be fair. So he will let her talk nonsense, not to offend her. He will behave in a chivalrous way, or at least in a chivalrous way, which will enable the woman to say nonsense, and the man will not react, because for him, unconsciously or consciously, he will say, I will not challenge her assertions because I respect her as a woman, which will allow unconsciously the woman to say all sorts of nonsense. That's why women, whether they are journalists, intellectuals, writers, etc., should not be, I mean, there should be no legal coercion against women, but simply men should ignore women whenever they talk about serious topics politically, because women, they seek male attention, and if men cease to care about what women say, women will not go into the business of philosophy, politics, economics, etc., etc. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm in favor of free speech, of course, but then you have to exert your freedom with intelligence, and it means that I have been practicing this. Whenever women talk about politics, I try to be indifferent. There are some exceptional women like Ayn Rand, Ann Coulter, Simone Weil, not the politician, but the philosopher. There are a few exceptional women who have contributed to, I would say, science. Yeah, there are a few. But even here, it can be empirically noticed for those who have the interest. When women are allowed to talk freely, spontaneously, the overwhelming majority of women who say intelligent things, they talk about psychology, but not about economics, politics, history, the hard sciences. Most of what women talk about spontaneously, it can be noticed on the internet. The YouTube content creators, they are when they are female, they are overwhelmingly talking about psychology or makeup, ASMR, relations, sex. So very feminine topics in a way, with a feminine perspective, which is good, but there are very few women who spontaneously talk about politics, geopolitics, economics, physics, philosophy. Yeah, it's very rare, because this is not what women are wired either neurologically and metaphysically to talk about. So some might say, oh, that's cultural oppression. No, the result of cultural oppression. No, women have had access to high education for decades, sometimes for more than a century. They have been encouraged, they are constantly encouraged to compete with men, but there is a very low proportion of women who spontaneously talk about what de facto are masculine topics, namely topics of objective or Geist. And when they do talk about topics like psychology psychology or language, they do so not in a rigorous scientific objective way with, in the Anglo-Saxon way, statistics, data, proof, reasoning, etc., etc. They do it in a more intuitive way, which is good. That's the female contribution to the intelligibility of the world. And in a sense, I am not misogynistic, but simply they are really different in terms of science. They approach things differently. The good aspect about females is that they have a more holistic view, a more intuitive, a more full view spontaneously, whereas men, they are more analytical, they are more systematizer, rigorous categorization, etc., etc. Women, they are more intuitive, they spontaneously, immediately grasp the truth in a way without being able to express this and formulate this rigorously conceptually. Men, they are more abstract, more detached, more scientific in a way. But it's not a cliche due to a patriarchal oppression. This is simply how the brain is wired. And so here there have been some interesting contribution to economics, for instance, by wonderful women. But even Ayn Rand, which is really an over-the-top, larger-than-life woman, I haven't read the book, but I know enough to know precisely that she is really great in comparison with most economists, but in the sphere of libertarian economics and philosophy, the more serious people, they are all males. Mises, Rothbard, Hopper, Hayek, etc. In a way, it's more serious. So, yeah. But I love Ayn Rand, but yeah. And here, my view, I do not intend to make a video about my views on women, but countries where the traditional gender roles are really, or where the gender roles are really traditional or traditionalist, those societies are thriving demographically. The Islamic world is kind of repressive towards women in comparison with modern Western standards, but the Islamic world is thriving demographically, and the liberated women of the West, they have no children. When they do politics, they do radical left-wing politics, even if they are conservative. The spectrum has shifted so much on the left over the past century that even right-wingers, they are still leftists because they are in favor of redistribution, socialization, welcoming of migrants, tolerance, everything has to be socialized, etc. So the countries where women are liberated, they are dying, they are disappearing, they are vanishing from the face of the earth, and the countries where women are oppressed, the countries are thriving demographically. So here, just a little bit of Darwinism completely annihilates modern feminism simply because from an evolutionary standpoint, it's not sustainable, and the societies which have adopted feminism are in a process of vanishing, and those who have kept traditionalist perspective on gender roles, they are thriving. So if you adopt a longer term perspective, feminism is false simply because if allowed long enough to express itself, it will self-erase in a way. Yeah. But my Hegelian view is that would be a liberating oppression for women. For women, liberty is oppressive, and oppression is liberating, but not violent oppression, but actually women, they want to be governed by strong men. And what they call liberation and being independent from their husband, it actually means to be completely dependent on the state, which regulates every aspect of their lives. But here, women, they think of themselves as just individuals, they do not see the full picture. So what women call freedom, I've realized this, means to be able to have sex with whoever they want without being judged, so to behave loosely without consequences, and they call this liberation, but they have no concern for the political, social, economic aspect. And I don't blame them, this is just how they function. But for women, it's not a problem to be completely enslaved by regulation, taxation, brainwashing. I mean, there are women who are smart enough and courageous enough to denounce this. And yeah, I just promote a book that I received earlier in the afternoon. Yeah, two strong, independent-minded, in a way, women, who happens to be French, the civil servants against the state. There's just a liberal, a free market economist, one might say, who denounces the destructionism of parasitical socialism in France. And here, a journalist who was fired by her boss, one might say, for lack of political correctness, although she's a leftist, and she denounces the media oppression. So these are courageous, kind of independent-minded women in a way, but it's very rare, and there are probably strong men behind their rebellious tendencies. But most women, they don't care, because they don't even think about this. They don't care of being completely enslaved by the state in the modern world. They say that women have been oppressed by the patriarchy for thousands of years, but it was a protective kind of oppression, because the modern oppression, it's not directly seen. Maybe women, they are not directly oppressed by their husband, but they are burdened, like everyone else, by legislation, taxation, regulation, censorship, and they don't care. So women, they don't want to be independent and free. They want to be governed by strong men, and when the man who governs them becomes weak, they call this oppression. Women complain about the patriarchy not because they complain about strong husband and fathers. They complain about the patriarchy because the husband and the father have become weak, and women don't want to be ruled by weak men. And when men become weak, women complain and they seek emancipation, but they do not seek to become independent. They want to be dominated by a stronger male. That's how it functions. And here, I mean, the history of the West over the past 70 years, Western people, they have lost their moral legitimacy after the Second World War because Germany was defeated and the excesses perpetrated by the Germans have have brought the reputation of the West and of white people into disrepute, and then it has left the room to blame all the past excesses, in a way, colonialism, slavery, etc., etc., which has disgraced, in a sense, which has brought the reputation of white people, Western whites, into disrepute. So the Western man has been broken morally and symbolically. That's why women have become feminists, because they do not respect unconsciously the figure of masculine authority, because the Western white European, anthropological European figure of authority has been broken after 2 world wars. So women have no longer any sort of respect for the masculine figure of authority, and that's why feminism thrives, in a way. Yeah, and that's why this explains why women have they have divorced the patriarchy to marry the state, or to marry radical Islam. There are Western women who marry Muslims who are really radical, simply because they are seeking a strong authority, in a way, an authority figure. Yeah, and they find this either in the state or in the figure of the philosophy teacher in the American campuses. That's the figure of moral and intellectual prestige. So women, they follow the teachings of whatever nonsense they spread. So either it's they embrace and marry the state, or their philosophy teacher, which is on the paycheck of the state, or radical Muslims because it brings them authority, etc., etc. But yeah, women do not want to be free and independent. They want to be dominated by strong men. Yeah, and intelligent women in the modern day, they understand that the strong men in the making, they are not those who control the state apparatus, but those who seek to restore independence and greatness. Yeah. Okay, so now I will drink my glass of water. Here's a great libertarian author, Rose Wilder Lane. This is one of the few exceptions, really an exceptional book about politics in the broadest sense, written by a woman. Women can write great books about psychology, literature, yeah. Yeah. But sometimes they write really great books about politics or the sciences or philosophy, but it's significantly rare, but it can happen. Yeah. General notes on or about the suppression, notes on the general suppression of political parties. That's Simone Weil, a Jewish philosopher of the 1930s and 40s. Yeah, that's an exceptional woman. Yeah. There are very few great women or female intellectuals, but if there are, she's one of them. Yeah. Women are great. Here's I have a theological joke. About the beginning of the Bible. God creates, that's a joke, God creates man, and then he notices, I've made a mistake. How am I gonna fix this? I will create a companion for man. He creates Eve, and then God said, oh, it's getting worse. And now they will multiply. Oh, That's a joke, that's a joke, that's a joke. Yeah. Here I will make an intelligent remark. The supposedly oppressed women of previous society, of pre-feminist societies, women, they were considered as goddesses, and the statues were built to honor the beauty and the virtues, the chastity, the intelligence, the skills of women. Yeah. In the modern world, the Western world, women are said to be free and to be equal, etc. The typical image that we have of women in the realm of porn industry, etc. I'm not in favor of censorship. I'm in favor of self-restraint. It's like the female journalist. If male stop watching porn, women will stop getting into the industry because they just do porn to attract the attention of males. So if males cease to give their attention to certain types of female behavior, they will vanish simply because women will not perform action which does not attract the attention of males, of high value males actually. Although in the case of porn, this is for low value males, but this is not a direct interaction. But females are just seeking male attention, the attention of high value males. If you become indifferent, they will stop doing whatever behavior you might disagree with. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, it's been more than 2 hours, so now I will promote books. Books about women. No, that's what I've been doing. I will promote books about the topics that I discussed yesterday and the day before, but first, the last good joke. I practice minimalism, and for now more than 6 months, I think this has been my mattress. I sleep on this, and here's the joke. I encourage men to renounce comfort for the sake of strengthening their strength, their will, their discipline. If you become a virtuous man, practicing minimalism, self-restraint, etc., you will attract the attention of high-value women, and if somehow you find you find an attractive female partner that you invite in your home, and she notices that you have no mattress, you have no bed, that you sleep on the ground because you are you are on some sort of a spiritual mission, and she asks you, but where am I gonna sleep? And then you can make a joke. You can say, but you will. You propose her to sleep on the ground. She would say, but that's not comfortable enough. And then you can say, but you can sleep on top of me. And I have another. It's not really funny actually, but I have another joke which is kind of. It's a sexual joke in a way. I don't know how to formulate the joke, but basically, the cowgirl position. No. Yeah. The cowgirl. Imagine a couple. They always practice the cowgirl position, and the woman, she gets bored at some moment. Oh, that's always the same position. Let's change. I'm tired of being on top. And the man, if he's confident, he said, but whatever position we adopt, whenever you're with me, I will always be on top because I'm the best. That's the way of talking to women. If you are really a great man, of course, but yeah. I understand female psyche because women, these jokes, they were not really funny actually, but they sounded better in my mind. But women, they enjoy usually good humor because if a man makes good jokes, usually he gains status among his social circles, and women, they seek men with status. So if you are funny, genuinely funny, it's one way of gaining status, and then if you gain status, women are attracted. But also it's a sign of confidence, because if you can crack good jokes, it's a proof that you can release the tension in difficult situations, that you are confident. And since women, they seek comfort and security, if you make good jokes, you will inspire confidence. Yeah. So now let's promote books. Marshall, you're so funny, man. You should be a comedian. Goddamn. Unfortunately, I am. I just hide behind the tears of a clown. So why don't you all sit down, listen to the tale I'm about to tell. I don't want a fucking manservant following me around, laughing at every joke I crack. Half of them are not even funny. Yeah. Yeah. So now I will promote. It will be a little bit boring because I've already done this, but it's really a systematic presentation. I promote ideas. So here. I'll just pick up the document again. A lot of my jokes, whether they are funny or not, they really work only in English. The guy who invented the English language he was not an idiot. And also, what I think about this, for the people who might doubt a traditionalist view of women's role in the realm of politics, one of the features of what I call cultural Hegelianism, namely the unity of Evola, pop culture, and the boring German metaphysician, pop culture can help shed a lot of light onto the whole of society, because in the document behind this one, art is a reflection of, and sometimes, most of the time, an unconscious reflection of a society, and if it's really good, it is universal. And we live in an age where a lot of female artistic productions are made available, and women, in a lot of songs, in pop music songs, they sing about their helplessness, their incompetence, and or their insanity sometimes. Bibi Rexha, I'm a mess. Avril Lavigne, in the song What the Hell. Rihanna, in Rude Boy, she says, I want to get a little bit crazy. Cyndi Lauper, girls just want to have fun. So women, when they express themselves, they confess that they are kind of irresponsible in a way. They play the funny card, oh, I just want to be, to have fun, to get a little bit crazy, etc., etc. But it can be funny, yeah, but sometimes it's a little bit annoying, because males have to order the insanity of the female psyche, and Plato already knew this. There's an aspect of irrationality within the soul. The soul usually is feminine. Even the soul of man, it's more feminine in a way. Like the mind is more masculine, because the soul is more in the realm of emotions, the mind is more abstract, detached, etc. So a woman, mindful, that's not a proper term, but a woman, an intellectual woman, that's a masculine feature, and an emotional man, that's a female feature in a way. So, yeah, but they complement one another in a way, and a little bit of new age wisdom, the feminine and the masculine, they are interconnected. There is feminine aspect in every man and masculine aspect in every woman. You do not have to repress your inner femininity if you're a man. You do not have to repress your inner masculinity, but develop your inner potential, etc. Yeah, it's kind of true. That's the yin and yang, but nonetheless, there are radical differences, and the soul in the metaphysical tradition Plato already knew is more feminine, even if it's the soul of men. It's feminine because it's more emotional, it's more it's less analytical in a way, it's more immediate than the mediation of the abstraction of the mind. But the soul, according to Plato, is partly irrational, and women, they are ontologically irrational in a way, sometimes, and it can bring fun and entertainment for males and females, but sometimes it's a little bit annoying, and so because of UPS, women have a tendency to be a little bit to drift away a little bit, and they need masculine clarity and order to remain stable. That's why politically this explains, I mean, there are other explanations, but my views about the role of females in politics if it has to be illustrated empirically, Sweden was one of the greatest countries in terms of overall standards of living, not just economically, but the overall well-being of society a few decades ago. It's the most fanatically one of the most fanatically feminist countries in the world. It has become a beacon of ideological correctness, insanity, and the rape capital, one of the rape capitals of the world, and yeah, so they pride themselves in being a progressive country run by women, but it's not the fault of women, it's the fault of men who have allowed themselves to be ruled by women. But they run the country, but they run the country into the ground, basically. Yeah. Make a Viking man great again. My Odinic self, my Odin self is working on this. Yeah. So, books. Yeah, so here it's about partly housing, partly prepping, partly housing, partly growth, books, partly ecology. Ecology is not present in the document as such, but following a holistic, healthy lifestyle overall will lead to the resolve to solve a lot of ecological problems. So I haven't had the time to start practicing this, but I encourage people who have the opportunity to do so. And also something that I thought about today, if you have the possibility of going on a holiday or taking a sabbatical, as they call this, a vacation, going on vacation, my piece of advice would be quit temporarily or completely your job and spend a lot of time trying to fix your life and to gather information, because if you read a few good books and if you apply the teachings, living without money, self-sufficiency, etc., if you apply the teachings of good books, it will have a positive towards food self-sufficiency. It will have positive impact, how to depend less on the system for the rest of your life. The totality of world knowledge is made available on the internet. I try to provide a structure of the view of the totality. On an individual level, whoever you are, if you have the financial opportunity to quit your job and to acquire skills and knowledge, that's an opportunity. Yeah, the bullshit job, they will go away. One way or another, at some moment, they will vanish. If you have a bullshit job, I encourage you to quit your job, because if you have followed my videos on whole economics, maybe you will have learned that there is an enormous amount of waste, economic waste, ecological waste, waste of time, meaninglessness, and just by changing, by depending less on the system, by becoming by having fewer wants, you can become wealthier. That's my t-shirt about Epictetus. And you can gain a lot of leisure, but not to become idle and to plunge into material pleasure, but simply to study and to dedicate yourself to leading a more spiritual life. Yeah. Here I will show all the books of my library about whole economics in the order in which they are presented. So here about housing, tiny house, my life in a tiny house. I will not talk about the housing market, the housing problem, but basically the younger generation in the West, they are being a little bit screwed up. And one way of finding a solution is to adopt a simpler lifestyle. And also about females, if you rebuild strong family ties and couple relationships, if men get married more often, and if the welfare state is defunded, if the welfare state is being abolished, women will not be able to lead a decadent lifestyle. That's not their fault. It's because their husband allows them to do so. And here the husband is the state. So if the state and the redistributive policies are being defunded, women will be forced to act more virtuously to find husband who will support them. So couples will be reformed and reformed as well, which means the housing market will be more stabilized, because the breaking down of the family unit, the traditional family unit, and the breaking down of gender role dynamics, it means that if people do not get married, there has to be a household for every woman, not every, but for all single women and all single males, which means double the taxes paid to the government, double heating, double travel, double electricity consumption, etc. Whereas all of this could be, if the gender relations were fixed, if people started to live with their wife and their family, their children and their wife again, a lot of housing problems and ecological problems could be solved. Yeah. Because in traditional society, either the woman is under the authority of her father or of her husband, but certainly not under the authority of the state. So a woman ought not to be allowed to leave the authority of the father unless she can find a husband who can support her. And if it does not happen, what happens is that the woman will seek protection from the state, which offers no protection, but social decadence. Yeah. The books about prepping for kids, that's one way of introducing prepping to young people. The pantry primer. And here another remark about women. There are a lot of women who, in the modern world, they have lost all the traditional ancestral skills which have been passed down throughout the generation, from a grandmother to a granddaughter and mother, because this is what enabled a woman to have skills and to be competent and to be worthy as a housewife of a husband who would take care of her. Feminists, they don't like to hear this, but the husband, I've already said it, the husband who takes care of the women in the modern world, this is the state, by expropriation of property, theft, inflation, etc., etc. And women had to be competent as housewives. They had skills. In the European tradition, these were the witches, because they had knowledge about herbal medicine, about ancestral traditions, etc. They had competence. Here, really, this is for the spiritual aspect, but even the ordinary women, they were competent in the management of the household, and they were therefore valuable in the eyes of the potential husband, and they were valuable economically. And a lot of women have become worthless, not as person, but they have become worthless economically and incompetent. It's not of their own fault. It's what a socialist society produces. They have become incompetent because they are told that they can be independent, but actually they are dependent on being employed by the state or receiving welfare payments, and therefore they don't need to increase their personal worth through not putting makeup and boobs, how do you call this, having boobs implementation, or having their bottom remade by surgeons, etc. That's not that does not create value. A woman was and could be valuable beyond the mere physical appearance if she had household skills and social skills in terms of interpersonal competence while dealing with others, to try to solve the problems of communities on a local scale. That's more the role of women. Men, they are more expensive, not in terms of money, but they have a tendency to expand beyond the immediate community. But yeah, women had no choice but to be competent socially and economically, not as wage workers but as household managers. Otherwise they were worthless in the eyes of potential suitors, except the ability to produce offspring in their youth. But women have to become competent again, and it's not their own responsibility, but simply the state has to vanish because it's not the welfare state is not sustainable, which will force women to acquire competence and skills again to take care of the household in order to offer services to potential partner. Because here I talk about my personal case. I work alone. I take care of the household management. I have learned this, and it's good because I was completely incompetent. But I don't do just this. I do my philosophical lectures. But that's what I said earlier. I can do, in terms of household management, what women can do, and I can do it better, although I am disabled. But I can do a lot of things that even the best household woman manager can't do. That's economics. Here we have vegetarian diets. That's economics as it is being taught. Sometimes Ricardo, the Jewish, English, Portuguese economist of the early 19th century, in the tradition of Adam Smith. I have been distributing this book, and I will continue to do so, to encourage people to change their diet for the better. The best way to have a diet. These are singular books, but there are books like this in English, in German, in Spanish, in Dutch, in Polish, whatever language, in Japanese. Eat local. Yeah, what was I saying? I was talking about household economics. So yeah, what was I saying? Ricardo, the boss and the secretary. That's the theory of comparative advantages. The boss of any company, any business, he is potentially and has to be potentially able to perform the task of the subordinates. So the reason why he has subordinates like a secretary is not because the secretary is better, but simply because the boss is better at everything he does. So he could do the work of the secretary, but his ability would be better used in his specific role. So it's not, he doesn't hire a secretary because he can't do the job. He could do much better than the secretary, but it's in his personal interest to let someone else do it, so he can focus his energy on what he's really the best at. That's the theory of comparative advantages. The boss, not all of them, but a competent manager or competent CEO or business owner, he ought to be able to be better at the bureaucratic work that a secretary can do, and he has to be usually. But the reason why he doesn't do this, it's not because the secretary is better, it's simply because his time is better used to be focused on more productive activities for the good of the company. Yeah. that's the same with husbands and wives. The husband ought to be able to perform all the tasks that a housewife can perform. But the reason why men don't do it, it's not because they are lazy or because women have some secret power. It's simply because men are more efficient at doing something else. Yeah. Because a man can do the job, most of the jobs of a woman, but the reverse is not true. Yeah. The division of labor, which enables here that do everything by yourself, but the division of labor which enable social cooperation and the tremendous increase of social productivity, it begins in the household with the division between the tasks performed by the husband and the tasks performed by the wife. And the societies where it's still prevalent, it functions much better than the society where the household division of labor has been completely disrupted, and the feminists, they can complain about the patriarchy oppression only because they live in a society where their role here, that's a Marxist analysis, they are just agents of the state. They just spread the ideology of the state, of state supremacy, which is their husband. Basically, they just defend the interest of their husband, which is actually the taxpayer. So the feminist ideology, here that's a Marxist analysis, can only exist in a society which is already parasitical and corrupted, not necessarily morally, but socio-economically in a way. The feminist intellectuals, the feminist propagandists, they only exist through means of exploitation. In poorer societies, it's not that women are not intelligent enough to be feminists, but in poorer societies like a lot of Muslim society, India, etc., or African societies, women, they are too busy trying to be productive to let themselves become idle at the expense of the taxpayers' money and become intellectuals or journalists, female journalists or female intellectual, to spread nonsense which poisons the whole of society. So yeah, here the Marxist view has to be used against a radical leftist female propagandist. Yeah. Books about degrowth and minimalism. I have a good joke. I didn't plan this joke. I have two good jokes before the end of the video. Women, typically they are usually interested in these kind of books because it's trendy, it's ecological, etc., etc. Let us imagine a couple where they have some sort of sexual problems. The husband is not really exceptional in bed, and the woman happens to be ecologically minded, and after a disappointing intercourse, the woman complains to her husband, "Oh, you're not really good, and you're not you're not as well built as a woman should expect a man to be." And then the man, if he's smart, would say, but honey, small is beautiful. And then the woman would say, that's not what that's not what I meant. Well, you get the idea. That's not an excuse for men who fail to satisfy. Yeah. Books about recycling and waste. That's the same trick. They are becoming trendy in all countries, etc., etc. Here, that's one of my arguments against the people who complain about poverty. Of course, there are inherent structural reasons, but first, here a little bit of serious economics. This book and this kind of book, they explain rigorously the real reasons why there is poverty. It's not because of the capitalist, it's precisely because of state regulation and the distortion of the money supply and the regulation of economics, which is destructive for the creation of wealth. So that's first, if people complain about poverty in socialized economies, first they have to think rigorously, and then even they have to think about the wealth which is not being created because of regulation. That's what Per Bylund calls the unseen. They have to think about the wealth which is being destroyed by the falsification, the debasement of the currency. And finally, within the wealth which is being created, there's an enormous amount of waste on an individual level, but also on a collective level, because here, a little bit of sociology, geographical sociology, there is an enormous amount of waste in terms of oil consumption, travel, etc., because the geographical urban structure of Western societies have been adapted to a lifestyle built around the use of cars and the disruption of the traditional family unit. And to restore communities means to travel less. And if women became housewives again, they would be able to take care of the daily business of buying supplies and stimulating economic life, while men could dedicate themselves to real work for the greater society. But if the couples are being disrupted, each member of the potential couple, the single male and the single woman, they have to take care of everything, which means they can't because they do not have the time, which means more dependence, more bureaucrats, more bullshit jobs, etc., etc. So a Marxist analysis of feminism, a classical Marxist analysis, would ruin the theoretical foundation of feminism, because it's here I know this. Feminism is an intellectual weapon used by usually high middle class or high bourgeoisie intelligent white women against their decadent husband. They want emancipation from the decadent white bourgeoisie, and they pretend that all women share a common interest in terms of class or ethnicity, whereas it's not true, because the working class, the white working class women, their interests are not opposed to the white working class husband, although there can be problems, domestic violence, abuses, etc. But their enemy, in a way, their competitor is not the white working class male, but the bourgeois from a Marxist perspective. So the classical Marxist view of class opposition, that's working class versus bourgeoisie, but the feminism is the ideology of the bourgeoisie to disrupt the class opposition against the interest of the working class and to bring fake divisions. Sometimes they are genuine, but to bring about division within the household between males and females, to try to unite women against men, but these are abstractions, that's UPS. Women do not exist as such, neither do men. There are only particular types of women depending on ethnicity, gender, women, depending on ethnicity, age, social class, culture, nationality, etc., etc. So they mix up the categories to bring confusion, and feminism is not an ideology which serves the interest of women in general, but especially not the working class women. It's completely detrimental. It completely ruins the life of all women and of the whole of society eventually, but especially of working class women. Because the interest, the primary interest of working class women, precisely, is to have a companion which genuinely cares about them, and it is certainly not the state bureaucrats. So usually working class women, they have a lower IQ, not always, but they tend to have a lower IQ, and they can be even less independent than high IQ white women. So they need even more protection, and it is not by destroying the legitimacy of the traditional vigorous figure of the white working class worker, that which the feminism does, namely to destroy the moral legitimacy of the worker running his household. They destroyed a sense of accomplishment and pride in white workers, and they destroy completely the lives of white working class women, which are left helpless because their husband, if they do no longer feel the social burden, in a good sense, the moral responsibility of being good husbands, if they are allowed to be immature adults or even degenerates morally, they have no self-respect, and they cannot gain the respect of their wives, so it ruins everything. And yeah. And women, of course, there is hypergamy, and they always are interested in the most high status male, wealthiest, more charismatic, most powerful men, etc., etc. But that's a tendency that women have towards hypergamy, namely to always seek to mate with a higher male, but they are, in spite of the excesses of female delusional views of romantic relationships, they are nonetheless intelligent enough in terms of adaptation to know that they cannot all get in bed with, I don't know, Brad Pitt or George Clooney or whoever. They have to settle with a lower status male, but it's not a problem if the lower status male, in terms of economic status, if he's masculine. That's why historically it has always been okay for white working class women to live with poor males, which in the hierarchy of society at large they have a relatively low status, but if they are masculine in other fields than just the ability to earn a high income, even if they are poor, if they are nonetheless masculine, women will fall for them. That's American movies in the 1950s with Marlon Brando. The archetype of the working class hero, he's poor, but he's strong and vigorous, and the bourgeois males, they are decadent. And women, they always fall for the vigorous male, independently of economic wealth. So in this sense, yeah, it's it's not necessarily well known, but women, they seem to care only about wealth. But these are only decadent bourgeois women. Genuine women, they don't care about your wealth. They care about your strength, not necessarily physical, but your charisma in a way. And even if you are poor, if you are a strong man, either in terms of influence or prestige or charisma, or personality, you can attract females of high quality in spite of the lack of wealth. That's why females, they fall for sometimes for losers, social losers, but with charisma. Britney Spears, the song Criminal, that's why women, they fall sometimes for bad guys who are kind of social losers economically, but they are charismatic, they are strong-minded, and they can seduce hot chicks in spite of the lack of wealth, because this is not primarily what women are interested in. They seem to be money-grabbing let's not use derogatory words, but some women seem to be superficial, money-grabbing, derogatory word which starts with a W letter, but actually they are not, because wealth is not a sign of women do not seek wealth in men, although the caricature make it seem so. They seek strength in a way, or charisma, or personality, value of personality. And men who are intelligent, strong, charismatic, they tend to have a higher social status, which enable them to gain wealth, or they tend to be able to gain wealth, which enable them to gain status. But it's only a byproduct. Wealth is only a byproduct. Here the categories have to be used properly. Women are not genuinely interested in your economic wealth, although they are biologically programmed to seek resources, but actually they are, you have to be able to provide a minimum, of course, of resources, but they are more interested in your spiritual aspect. Yeah, that's why Jesus was a womanizer. Yeah. I could be a great psychologist. About degrowth, Industrial Society and Its Future by Theodore Kaczynski. And men, they get kind of deceived by this, because they think that in order to gain access to high status women, that they need to earn a lot of money, which drives the process of the production of an infinite amount of useless stuff, because men, sometimes when they are interested, they think that they have to gain money to please women or to seek high quality women, but women, they do not care first and foremost about money. They care about status and influence and prestige and charisma, and the excess of, here I would say capitalism, the excess of wealth production. It's because there are many other reasons, but one of the reasons is because men unconsciously, they believe that in order to get laid, they have to get paid first. The more, if you get paid higher, you get laid better. That's probably what they think. It's partly true, but actually not necessarily. That's what the book What Women Want says. It's a mistake to seek money for the purpose of getting women. If you want women, go seek women first. Do not seek the intermediary of money. I mean, a minimum is necessary in a way to provide resources, but that's not what women are after primarily. Yeah. And finally, the books about healthcare. So here I have shared all the books that I've presented in the previous videos about home economics. I'm not sure that I'm going to do this a fourth time because it's a little bit exhausting. If people have watched this video or other videos, if they still haven't understood that the totality of world knowledge is made available, what I provide is a structure, and depending on your possibility, capabilities, interests, you can find all the knowledge you need by making a quick internet search, buying books, watching lectures, videos, sharing your experience, etc., etc. So I will conclude with a good joke. Let us imagine a man and a woman, a beautiful young man and a beautiful young woman. They have a sexual intercourse, and well, the man he ejaculates kind of prematurely, so it's a little bit disappointing in a way, and he looks at his girlfriend. He says, "Well, I wish it had lasted longer." And what does the girlfriend reply? "Me too." Well. Yeah. Maybe God gave talents to every humans, and for those who do not have a lot of talent or who think they don't, he gave them a good sense of humor to laugh at some aspects of existence. Well, I will end the video here. And I don't know when I will publish the video. I still have videos to record, but now I will go out a little bit to rest slightly and to keep working. And yeah.